My stepmother's grief turned into a suffocating obsession, culminating in her stealing a key to my new home. I never imagined I'd have to change my locks and install a security system to keep my own family out. I've always been my father's daughter. My mother passed away in a car accident when I was just 3 years old. So my dad, Robert, was my entire world. He was a quiet, kind man who worked hard as an engineer to give me a good life. He was both father and mother to me, and our bond was incredibly strong. When I was 16, he married Clara. She was a widow with a son, Kyle, who was 2 years younger than me. They moved into our house, and just like that, our family of 2 became a family of 4. We were never a family in the true sense, though. Clara was always polite, but distant. Her focus was squarely on Kyle, and I was just the daughter of the man she married. I didn't blame her. We were all navigating a new situation. But there was no attempt to build a mother-daughter relationship. For those 2 years before I left for college, we coexisted like polite acquaintances sharing a space. I called her Clara, she called me Anna, and we managed to avoid any major conflicts. I spent most of my time in my room, counting down the days until I could leave for university. When I finally did, at 18, I felt like I could breathe again. My visits home were reserved for major holidays, and they were always brief and somewhat strained. Then 2 years ago, my dad died. It was a sudden, massive stroke. The world dropped out from under me. The grief was a physical pain, a constant ache in my chest. In the immediate, shocking aftermath, Clara and I found ourselves clinging to each other. We planned the funeral together, sorted through his belongings, and spent evenings sitting at the kitchen table, sharing stories about him through our tears. In that raw, vulnerable state, I felt a glimmer of something new, a potential for a real connection, forged in shared loss. I thought maybe, just maybe, something good could come from this unimaginable pain. That hope was short-lived. A few weeks after the funeral, the dynamic began to shift. It started with small requests. Could I come over on Saturday to help with the garden? Dad always handled it. Could I look at her computer? It was running slow. And Robert was the one who fixed those things. I agreed, wanting to be supportive. But the requests quickly escalated. She asked if I could contribute to property taxes, saying the house felt like a shared responsibility now that Dad was gone. This felt odd to me, as the house was solely in her name, a premarital asset she'd brought into the marriage. Still, wanting to be kind, I gave her a small amount for one bill. A decision born more from guilt than a sense of duty. The real alarm bells started ringing when she casually mentioned that she and Kyle were thinking of downsizing, and asked if they could stay with me in my one-bedroom apartment for a little while. The request was so vague and open-ended it sent a chill down my spine. My apartment was my sanctuary, the one place I felt in control. I said no firmly. She tried to guilt me, talking about how empty the house felt and how family should stick together. But I held my ground. That was the first major boundary I set. The true breaking point came about 8 months after Dad's death. Kyle, my stepbrother, texted me one Friday night. He said there was a major plumbing issue at their house, a burst pipe, and they had no water. Could he possibly stay at my place for the night? I was hesitant. Kyle and I were not close, and he'd never asked for anything like this before. But he was insistent, painting a picture of a minor disaster. I was actually heading out of town for the weekend to visit a college friend, so I reluctantly agreed. I told him where I hid my spare key and said he could use it. Returning home on Sunday night, I opened my door to a scene of devastation. My apartment was wrecked. There were red plastic cups everywhere, sticky patches on the floor, a dark, suspicious stain on my cream-colored rug, and the leg of my sofa was splintered. The air reeked of cheap beer and sweat. It was blatantly obvious Kyle had thrown a wild party. I felt a hot, sharp anger rise in my throat. I called him immediately. He didn't answer. I then called Clara, my voice tight with controlled rage. It turned out there was no burst pipe. Kyle had simply wanted a place to party without his mother around, and my empty apartment was the perfect opportunity. When I finally got him on the phone, his apology was flippant. "Yeah, sorry about the mess. Things got a little crazy. My bad." Clara initially tried to minimize it, calling him a young man who made a mistake. He was 21. I told them both in no uncertain terms that they needed to come over, properly clean everything, and pay for the damages, the ruined rug and the broken sofa leg. Kyle showed up the next day with a half-empty bottle of cleaner and a disingenuous "sorry, dude." He did eventually pay for the repairs, almost certainly with Clara's money, but the profound violation I felt was never acknowledged. After that, I was done. I drastically reduced my contact with them. I wasn't openly hostile, but I stopped responding to most of Clara's messages and declined all invitations. I focused on my own life, on my career in graphic design, and on a dream I'd had since I was a girl. Owning my own home. Using the inheritance and life insurance money my dad had left me. I worked tirelessly, saved relentlessly, and finally, this past spring, I bought a house. It was a charming 2-bedroom bungalow with a small garden, and it was entirely mine. It felt like the ultimate tribute to my father, a place of my own that he had helped me secure. A few months after moving in, I decided to host a housewarming party. I invited close friends, a few aunts and uncles, and some cousins. After much internal debate, I also sent an invitation to Clara and Kyle. I didn't want to be the one to create drama by openly excluding them, a decision I would soon deeply regret. The party started off well. Clara arrived with a potted plant, and Kyle trailed behind her. We exchanged polite, superficial pleasantries. At one point, I was giving a small group a tour of the house, and I noticed Clara lingering outside my bedroom door while I was showing someone the second bedroom. I thought it was a little odd, but I was busy hosting and dismissed it. Later, as everyone mingled in the living room, I overheard Clara speaking to a cluster of my aunts. Her voice was warm and carrying. "I'm just so thrilled for us," she said, beaming. "The house is just beautiful. And don't you worry, I've already got a spare key so I can pop in and help her settle in whenever she needs." My blood ran cold. I turned to face her. "Clara, what did you just say? You have a key to my house." She smiled, a little too sweetly, and actually pulled a key from her pocket, holding it up for a moment. "Oh yes, darling. I found it in the junk drawer in the kitchen. I thought it was best I hold on to it for emergencies. Now that Kyle is talking about moving to the West Coast for that internship, I'll have so much more free time to spend here with you." I was mortified. This was happening in front of my friends and family. I saw a few of my friends exchange wide-eyed glances. I forced a tight smile. "We are definitely going to talk about that later, Clara," I said, my voice strained. "Of course, dear," she said, smoothly pocketing my key as if it were her birthright. The moment the last guest left, panic set in. She had snooped through my drawers and stolen a key to my home. The violation felt even more profound than the apartment incident. This was my house, my sanctuary. The next morning, I called a locksmith and had every single lock replaced. I didn't call Clara to inform her. I decided her discovery could be her own problem. It didn't take long. A week later was my uncle's 60th birthday party at a local restaurant. The whole extended family was there, including Clara and Kyle, who was still in town. I was determined to avoid them, sticking close to my cousins and enjoying the celebration. I wasn't going to let her ruin another family event. I should have known better. As dessert was being served, Clara made a beeline for me. Her face was a mask of hurt anger. "Why would you change the locks on your house without telling me?" she demanded, her voice loud enough to turn the heads of everyone at our table, including my uncle, the guest of honor. All eyes were on me. I took a steadying breath. "It's my house, Clara. I can change the locks if I want to. Why were you trying to get into my house without my permission?" She flushed. "I was trying to be nice. I made you a casserole. I thought we could have a quiet lunch together. I can't believe you'd do this to me. We're family." A hush fell over our immediate vicinity. "We are not that kind of family, Clara," I said, my voice clear and firm. "And you are not entitled to a key to my home that you stole from a drawer. That is a massive overstep of my boundaries." Her eyes welled up with dramatic tears. "I'm just trying to hold on to what's left of our family. Your father would be heartbroken to see you pushing me away like this. I love you like my own daughter." That was the final straw. "Clara, stop. Let's be honest. You were never a mother to me. We were civil for my dad's sake. This sudden attachment isn't healthy, and it's not welcome. You need to respect my space and my privacy." She began to cry in earnest, loud, racking sobs. "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me." One of my great-aunts rushed over, wrapping an arm around Clara and shooting me a look of pure disgust. My uncle looked deeply uncomfortable, and the festive mood of his party was shattered. Then, in a performance worthy of an award, Clara staggered, put a hand to her forehead, and swooned, collapsing onto the carpeted floor. A wave of gasps rippled through the room. People scrambled, fetching water, fanning her. Someone shouted about calling an ambulance. But within a minute she was coming to, murmuring about the heat and the stress. I stood there, frozen, oscillating between fury and a strange, detached disbelief. Was any of this real? It didn't matter. The damage was done. The attention was entirely on her, the poor, grieving widow driven to collapse by her cruel stepdaughter. I apologized to my uncle, gathered my things, and left, my hands trembling with adrenaline and rage. The fallout was instant and divisive. The older generation, my great-aunt, a couple of older cousins, labeled me as cold and ungrateful. They saw a grieving widow reaching out, and a heartless young woman slamming the door. My friends and younger cousins, however, were firmly in my corner. They saw a woman with blatant boundary issues who had staged a dramatic scene to manipulate everyone. I was caught in the middle, pressured to apologize to keep the peace, while my every instinct screamed that apologizing would be a betrayal of myself. I spent the next few days in a state of high anxiety. I didn't reach out to Clara, and she didn't reach out to me. The conflict was being waged through intermediaries, with relatives calling and texting me with their opinions. I finally made a decision. I was not apologizing. I had done nothing wrong by protecting my home. I confided in my closest cousin, who validated my feelings completely. I also called my uncle to apologize again for the disruption to his party, and he was surprisingly understanding, telling me not to worry and that Clara had been out of line. That support meant everything. I realized then that I needed to stop engaging. My home was my father's final gift to me, and I deserved to feel safe and at peace within its walls. He had raised me to be strong and to stand up for myself, and I knew he would have been proud of me for holding my ground. I began ignoring the guilt-tripping messages, responding with a brief, "I'm not discussing this," and moving on. The plan was to let the storm pass. If Clara wanted a real conversation, She knew where to find me. About 2 weeks later, a friend sent me screenshots Clara had taken to Facebook. She'd posted a series of old curated photos from a vacation we'd all taken years ago. In them we were all smiling, my dad, Clara, Kyle and me. I remembered feeling like an outsider the entire trip, forcing a smile for the camera. The caption she wrote was pure manipulation. A mother's love is forever, even when it's not returned. The deepest heartbreak is being shut out by the child you raised. I felt nauseous. She was publicly constructing a fantasy, a loving past that had never existed. The comments were a chorus of sympathy for her and subtle condemnation for me. You were a wonderful mother to her. And she'll realize what she's lost one day, they said. I wanted to scream the truth into the comments section, but I knew it would only fuel the drama. Instead, I saved the screenshots, shared them with my supportive inner circle as proof of her manipulation, and resolved to stay silent. The post was deleted a day later, but the message was clear. She was committed to playing the victim. The final attempt came through Kyle. He texted me a long, guilt-laden message. I don't get you. Mom has done nothing but love you and you treat her like garbage. She's a wreck. You at least owe her a conversation. We're all the family each other has left. The audacity was staggering. I waited until I was calm and replied with a final, clear boundary. Kyle, Clara was not a mother to me. We had a cordial relationship, and that is all. I have not abandoned anyone. I am protecting my peace. Her feelings are not my responsibility to manage at the cost of my own well-being. Do not contact me about this again. His reply was swift and venomous. Fine. Now I see who you really are. Selfish. Dad would be ashamed of you. That was the last straw. The mention of my dad, a man who would have been horrified by their behavior, severed any last fragile thread. I didn't respond. I simply blocked his number. Then I went into my phone and blocked Clara's number as well. For good measure, I blocked them both on all social media platforms. A profound sense of relief washed over me immediately. The constant low-grade dread of seeing their names on my screen was gone. I had taken back control. To secure my physical space as firmly as I had my digital one, I invested in a comprehensive security system for my house, with cameras at the front and back doors. My home was now my fortress, my sanctuary, in every sense of the word. I booked a long weekend away with my 2 best friends, a trip to a secluded cabin in the mountains. It was a celebration of my new home, and a ritual cleansing of the toxic drama. As I drove away from the city, the weight lifted completely. I was free. I had protected the peace my father had wanted for me. The story Clara was telling herself, and others, was no longer my concern. I had my truth, my home, and my life back. There were no more flying monkeys, no more passive-aggressive posts, no more stolen keys. Just the quiet, solid certainty of my own boundaries, and the peace that came with enforcing them. I was finally, completely, and unequivocally out.